I'm loving everything that Aaron Glenn is doing so far with bringing the whole physicality thing and accountability to one Jets drive. And you can see that a lot of players are liking it as well. So let's talk some of the storylines coming out of Jets training camp with Jake Asman of the Jake Asman Show and ESPN New York. Jake, thanks for hopping on with this, man. This first question is a little bit long, so bear with me. I know we're only in the week one in the training camp, but when you look at everything AG has brought to this team so far with the things like the live tackling periods at practice, holding players accountable for the penalties and the mistakes, to me it looks like the players have already bought in. Elijah vera-tucker kind of took a shot at the pass regime, so two-part question. In your eyes, in the fan base's eyes, is AG doing all the right things so far? And do you think that Elijah kind of should have kept that in-house, or do you think the fan base needed to hear that from a player?
Yeah, Brandon, as far as Aaron Glenn goes, I mean, you talk about a guy who continues to bat 1,000 this offseason since he's taken over. I think that's carried over into training camp now. Obviously, it's got to translate to winning games on the field, and the Jets have not won more than 7 games in a decade, so they're certainly due. But, all you could judge Aaron Glenn is just on the things that he has done so far, the things he has said, and even the comments that you alluded to from the players. And it seems like everyone is clearly bought in. I love how Aaron Glenn is preaching accountability. I love that the Jets actually have officials at practice, and Glenn is emphasizing the need to be disciplined, saying that the Jets just were an undisciplined mess last year without throwing, Robert Saleh and the previous coaching staff under the bus. I think the players have alluded to that as well. They're talking about accountability. They're talking about Brees Hall referencing the fact that showing up to work, he feels like there's a better plan in place for how they handle practice, how they handle the meeting schedule. It just feels like Glenn has had a real positive influence so far, with the caveat being he's still in the honeymoon stage. He's got to win games. We all get that. But I think it's been impressive so far. And as far as AVT's comments, I think if you actually hear the full answer and not just like the isolated quotes, you kind of see what he was saying. He was asked about some comments that Sauce and Garrett Wilson made about how they feel that Aaron Glenn's the right guy to turn things around. And I think in a way to kind of talk up Glenn, it's perceived as like a shot at the previous staff.
Yep.
But that all being said, I don't think anything AVT said was incorrect. And honestly, I appreciated the honesty, so I had no issue with the transparency there from AVT. I thought it was well said.
Yeah, I'm with you, man, because, Robert Saleh being a player's coach, had they won games and then they fired him, then yeah, I could see a player being upset or wanting to take a shot. But I think all these guys are so sick and tired of losing. They're all about the accountability and holding yourself accountable for the things that are hurting you in the losing games, because everybody from the players to security to the lunch people to the fan base, they're absolutely tired of not only losing, but the way some of those games have been lost. And when we talk about this, just what they're bringing, what Aaron Glenn brings, brought in Steve Wilkss as defensive coordinator. You mentioned having the refs at practice. Defensive holding and defensive DPIs, defensive pass interference, were a huge issue last year. So I want to ask, you think that Steve Wilkss and AG's new defensive scheme is going to hold up year one in the AFC East, applying a lot of pressure and playing man-to-man on the back end?
It's going to be interesting to see how they blend what Steve Wilkes has done historically as a coordinator to what Aaron Glenn has done, right? Aaron Glenn's more of a man-to-man defensive coach, if you look at his history, and Steve Wilkes is a lot more zone. So, look, that blend of the two of them combined, I'm fascinated to see what it looks like. But I think the Jets have the personnel to be a much better team defensively than they were last year once Robert Saleh was fired after the first 5 games of the season. I think they're due for some positive regression, right? Sauce Gardner was a first-team All-Pro his first 2 years. By his standards, last year was a down year. I expect him to bounce back. The Jets certainly believe he's going to bounce back, which is why they extended him. And if we can't trust Aaron Glenn, by the way, on corners, what can we trust him for, right? When you look at Aaron Glenn's own history, I think Quinnen Williams is due for a bounce back year. Same with Quincy. These two guys, they were both first team All Pros not that long ago. I think they're due for a bounce back. Jermaine Johnson being back, I think, is huge for the defense. Another year of Jamie and Sherwood. Defensively, they made it a priority to keep him. And then obviously Will McDonald has been the talk of camp early on. I think he's a really good fit for this defense. So, look, sometimes those penalties just happen, right? It could be a bang-bang play. It's very subjective. I think the biggest thing for Glenn and Wilkes, they want to eliminate being offsides. They want to eliminate personal foul penalties. And that goes for the offense as well. If you commit a penalty, if you're not lined up properly, if you false start, there has to be some accountability there. And the Jets need to be disciplined because last year they led the NFL in penalty yardage and defensively, specifically, Brandon, you brought it up. They were the most penalized team in the league on that side of the ball. So I do think this coaching staff, at the bare minimum, will help the Jets be a lot more disciplined, and they will not lead the NFL in penalties this year.
Yeah, and I think this scheme is going to kind of make or break Sauce as being a top 5 corner in that league. I think that the scheme that he's had to play in, one, that zone scheme, eyes playing through the receiver to the quarterback. He's good at it because he's a very cerebral and smart player. But to be 6'3", long, and can run, you need to be up in someone's face at the line of scrimmage. Use the double arm bar to take them off of their route stem. And then when you have that pressure being applied to the quarterback, then that's going to have some sort of bad throw. Sauce goes up and gets that. Hopefully he can have more interceptions this year. And I also want to see him travel with the team's true number 1 receiver. And I think they'll be able to do that on the back end. So I'm expecting huge things out of Steve Wilkss and Aaron Glenn's defense this year and this year 1. But let's flip and Riverside it when we talk about the offensive side of things, because I love Justin Fields. I love Garrett Wilson. I think Mason Taylor is going to be a weapon in this offense. You got the run game, but does Tanner Engstrand and Justin Fields have enough weapons for the Jets offense to be one of the top offenses, not only in the AFC, but possibly in the league?
That's the big question, right? Do they have enough weapons for Justin Fields to throw the ball to? You're counting a lot on Mason Taylor. You brought him up. 2nd-round pick. The early returns are positive, but not everyone's Brock Bowers, who's historically great as a rookie at that position, or even Sam Laporta 2 years ago, if you want to use another Lions comparison because of the Aaron Glenn and Tanner Engstrand ties. But look, can Mason Taylor come in and be a impactful player? I think he certainly can. If you look at Justin Fields, say whatever you want about him as a passer in his career, statistically, he's the 3rd best in the NFL over his last 20 starts at targeting the tight end if you look at QBR. So he does have some success throwing to the tight ends. We even saw that last year with Freiermuth in Pittsburgh when he was 4-2 before Mike Tomlin made the QB change to Russell Wilson. So I think between Mason Taylor, obviously Garrett Wilson, you have those 2 guys. You need someone else. It feels like Josh Reynolds is the leader in the clubhouse for the number 2 wide receiver. He knows the offense. Glenn was obviously with him, and Engstrand was with him with the Lions a few years ago. But then after that, you really have a lot of questions. Could they use Breece Hall out of the backfield a lot more? And he could get a lot of targets. It wouldn't surprise me. But the success and failure of the Jets, so much of it to me is coaching with Tanner Engstrand. Can he scheme guys open? Because other than really Garrett Wilson, I don't know if you feel very confident in anyone in that wide receiver room that they could get open, one-on-one, go and win their matchup consistently. So we'll see what Malachi Corley is, if he's going to be something in his 2nd year. If Arian Smith as a rookie could be a contributor. But there's major questions with that wide receiver room. And I think that's why a lot of people are probably hesitant to project, this Jets team being a playoff team, because you feel pretty good about the defense. I think you feel good about the O-line, the running game, all that. But at some point, you're going to need your quarterback to drop back and throw and win you games in the 4th quarter. And that's the major question mark with Fields, if he could do that with the weapons he has.
Yeah, over the next couple of weeks, I hope that they can identify a utility guy in this offense as well, someone you can use off the jet sweeps, maybe throw some screens to, can line up in the backfield or in the slot. One of those guys, I'm hoping it can be Malachi Corley, because Tanner Engstrand can be creative when it comes to the playbook and using guys as decoys. But either way, there's auditions being held right now for another playmaker in this offense. And if you're a receiver in the Jets offense right now, you got to be showing up to work each day like, hey, I've got a chance to eat. Jake, real quick, now that you've seen this team on the field for a week now, has your expectations changed for the better or for the worse?
I would say for the better. I don't want to read too much into, training camp, and today was only the first day with pads on, so now it starts to get a lot more real. But, I do think there is a lot of talent on this team. I know the perception is that the Jets are just going to be terrible because, Aaron Rodgers is not there anymore and Devontae's gone. But some of the other quote-unquote talent that the national pundits will talk about is, the Jets don't have Hassan Reddick anymore. They don't have Javon Kinlaw. And it's like, were we watching the same team last year? Like, those guys were major detriments to the team. So I do think some of the talent that is off this roster is being completely overstated. I do think you look at the defense, right? They have a former first-team All-Pro at all 3 levels. The offensive line, at least on paper, has a chance to be one of the better units the Jets will put on a field in 15 years. Your two offensive tackles are top 11 picks. You feel good about Joe Tippmann at center, and your two guards are among the best guard combinations in the league, and John Simpson and Elijah Vera-Tucker. So as long as they could just run the ball and they could play better defense, and the kicking game is not the worst in the league like it was a year ago, and maybe it's just league average, I don't think the Jets are an awful team. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they won 7 or 8 games. I think so much of the NFL comes down to coaching and how you are in one-score games. And the Jets last year led the NFL in blown fourth-quarter leads with 7. So, they won 5 last year with 7 blown leads in the fourth quarter. You win a couple of those games, they probably were a 7-8 team last year. I don't think they're that far away from that. I just have questions about, hey, can they win 9 or 10 games in the AFC and be a playoff team? I don't see that yet, but I hope I'm wrong as a Jet fan, because who doesn't want this story with Aaron Glenn, to be the story for all fans to rally around?
Yep, a lot of room for improvement for this team, but we all can agree that we love the approach that Aaron Glenn and this new regime has had in terms of turning this thing around and getting it right. Jake, thanks for hopping on with us, my man.
Brandon, anytime. Appreciate you asking to come on, and we'll do it again soon, I'm sure.